Okay, so hello all. My name is Nicole Pereira. I'm a third-year mathematics major with a stats concentration. I'm here today to talk to you about the dangers of drunk driving and how we can prevent them. So my presentation is titled "You Booze, You Cruise, You Lose." So let me tell you a little story. So I'm part of a sorority on campus, Sigma Theta Psi, and a couple years ago, one of my sorority sisters, Jeanette Martinez, in 2009, was hit and killed by a drunk driver right off of Imgen Parkway in front of Preston Park. Thankfully, she was not drinking. The other driver was, however. The other driver's BEC level was nearly 0.22. That's nearly 3 times above the legal limit of 0.08. With alcohol being so accessible, drunk driving has gotten a lot worse over the past couple years. This graph, taken from the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, shows the annual self-reported alcohol-impaired driving episodes among U.S. adults from 1993 to 2014. There is some fluctuating in the numbers, but we do not see a dramatic decrease in these driving episodes. But also keep in mind that this is a self-reported driving episodes. So think of all the times that someone drove under the influence and they didn't admit to it, which is pretty scary because people can die from drunk driving. In fact, at least 28 people die every day in America from a motor vehicle crash that involves an alcohol-impaired driver. That's at least one death every 53 minutes. Just keep that in mind the rest of the presentation. But in order to prevent this, officials have to create something more creative, They have the DUI checkpoint, which is probably the oldest trick in the book. But, a DUI checkpoint only works to some extent. They can't breathalyze every person going through that DUI checkpoint. So they created what is known as an ignition interlock device. Looks something like this. So basically what it is, it's a breathalyzer that connects to your car, specifically your ignition, and you have to blow into the breathalyzer in order to start your car. Your car will not start if your BEC level is above the pre-programmed limit, and in most cases that pre-programmed limit is as low as 0.02 for the BEC level. And when they're installed, they actually reduce repeat offenders by at least 70%. So in 2009, 2010 is when states started to realize that this idea is a new idea, so they started to try it out. So our next graph, taken from the Centers of Disease Control and Prevention, shows 4 different states: New York, Wisconsin, Illinois, and Arkansas. And the blue bar represents the year it was implemented, and the green bar represents the year after it was implemented. So New York had a 100% increase in usage. Wisconsin had a 555% increase. Illinois had a 69% increase, and Arkansas had a 245% increase of usage. Now please keep in mind that this graph just shows the usage of interlock devices. It does not show if they work or not. And after this, in 2012, states and judges started to realize that, wow, maybe this could really work. So as of 2012, all 50 states have laws permitting the imposition of these devices on top of sentences and fines. So if you're caught driving under influence, of course it's a DUI, so you'll get your sentences, you'll get your fines and your costs, and on top of this, in some states, you'll also get the device. But keep in mind that each state has a different rule for the installation of these devices. New York has a rule where it's required for first-time offenders. Wisconsin have a rule for only recurring offenders. And then, however, Illinois and Arkansas has a rule requiring the installation to reduce your suspended license period. So each state has a different rule for the regulation. Now the next 2 graphs are taken from an academic journal. The graph on the left shows the estimated installed interlock devices from 2005 to 2013. This just shows the usage and how it increases. Now the graph on the right is a completely different study, but from the same academic journal. The graph on the right shows the alcohol-impaired driving fatalities from the same time period, 2005 to 2013. And when you overlap these graphs, you can see that there's a correlation between the two. You can see that as these interlock devices increase, the fatalities decrease. But we can't say that, this is the sole factor, but we can say that there's a correlation and association between the two. So obviously they are impacting, and they are impacting the drunk driving fatalities. And as always, please don't drink and drive. There's Uber, there's Lyft now. I highly doubt that none of you would want to have an alcohol or to have the interlock device in your car. If you see someone who's had too much to drink, please take their keys away and say no, because if you drive or someone else drives and they have too much to drink, they can kill themselves and they can also kill other people as well. Thank you. We have time for questions.
What's California's take on this?
California has, it's a little bit high. The death rate's about 10,000 each year. Yeah. So.
But do they have the interlock device required?
Yes, they do. It's for recurring offenders. Yes.
Have things like Uber and Lyft, have they decreased the number of like alcohol-related deaths?
With the device implemented?
No, just like in general, like with people using Uber and Lyft.
I don't have the specific numbers, but they have certainly decreased. Looking at the numbers before Uber and Lyft came about, the numbers have certainly decreased. So it's also Uber and this device that's preventing drunk driving.
Your correlational data were really interesting, but I still have this question. I've heard that people can like have their passenger or friend go into it.
That's definitely a flaw in the interlock device. A flaw is that someone else can breathe in for them. They can have someone else breathe in for them and then continue driving while intoxicated. A thing that is recently implemented is that every either 15 or every half an hour, it requires them to turn off their car and blow into again to help that, to prevent that from happening, just so that they don't get like a couple more drinks and then drive, and then wait a couple more drinks and drive. So you have to blow into every half an hour. It makes you turn off your car.
So with the interlock device, it seems to be for mostly repeat offenders. Are most drunk driving occurrences committed by repeat offenders, or is it mostly by first-time offenders?
No, it can be by anyone. It doesn't have to be a repeat offender. Just like each state has different rules for the installation of these devices. Some states are for recurring offenders, but a lot of states are for first-time offenders, no matter if you're no matter what your BAC level is.
What's the higher risk group, high school kids or college kids?
College.
And is there any type of online training for new students coming to campus here about the concerns of drinking and driving as part of their learning experience?
Yes, actually, my sorority sister who I talked about in the beginning of my presentation, Jeanette Martinez, her father comes in once every year to tell his story and to tell Jeanette's story on what happened and the dangers of drunk driving and how we can prevent that happening, and he talks to the school about it.
I would just say that that's a wonderful tribute to Jeanette, who was one of our students, and you did an excellent job at the honors room.
Thank you.
Thank you, Nicole.
Thank you.